a small apartment as our first office up there. And there's Arnold there with one of our local guys. And we're looking around for a place to buy as an office. And so there was really nothing to be had. So we started looking in the countryside for land that we could buy so we could build on. And you see these little Orthodox churches scattered around the countryside. And they have these Orthodox churches. Some of them got no nails in them or screws. They're just mitered together. The carpentry is pretty amazing. And you see the intricacy of this Orthodox cross on the right here. So back in 2022, we were praying for 5 things. We wanted a bank account with one of the conferences. We wanted to finalize our registration for AFM Europe. We wanted to open Euro, Dollar, and Romanian Lei bank accounts. We wanted to finalize our website and our recruiting pathways for Europe. And we needed to find an operations manager. So that's what we were praying for from April 22 onwards. So in January, I flew out there. And by God's grace, we found an office. And it was kind of somebody had built this big place, and then they decided to retire and not to use it. And it was a brand new facility. And so it was a couple of miles out in the country outside of the city of Cluj. So when we first bought it, the road looked like it was on the left. And, in the story of Nehemiah, when Nehemiah wanted to go back and rebuild Jerusalem, who did he ask for help from? He asked the king. He said, I need lumber, and I need gold and silver and all the rest of it, and I need supplies. And so our local director said, well, our road is kind of a quagmire of mud. What are we going to do? I said, go and ask the local mayor to run in a proper road for us. She said, oh, that's like tens of thousands of dollars. Well, if you don't ask, you won't receive. Go and ask for a road. So they prayed about it, and the day that I arrived, which was Thursday night, the mayor decided that morning to run in a road for us. And he wasn't just going to do it in the future, he's doing it like that evening. So we had streams of trucks coming in, and they were delivering gravel, and there were steamrollers, and there were graders, and they ran in a gravel road, and now they're tarmacking it. It's about 3.5 miles. I mean, that's a serious job. And the mayor just decided to do it for us. And so if you don't ask, you won't receive, one of the lessons of ministry. So anyway, that's what the new office looks like. We've installed solar panels and geothermal, so it's basically cost neutral in terms of heating and air conditioning. God has blessed us with a large commercial kitchen. Those are the prayer requests they pray over every day. That's part of the office space. That's the back side of the office. What? Oh, it's gone, has it? Oh, it just jumped off. All right, so there is an office, allegedly. There is allegedly an office out there. And so let me just unplug this and plug it in again. And so there we are. This is how the south goes, yeah? Oh, it's gone. All right. All right, we had no problems like this last night, so let's see if this... All right, so I'm just going to leave it like that, okay? All right, we'll just leave it like that. And all right, so that's what it looks like from behind. There's the new geothermal. Those are the water tanks. The beds inside, dormitory style for young training missionaries. The first training will be this year. We expect to have about 10 young people coming through Romania this year. They're recruited from all across Europe, and the goal is to get 20 young people a year coming out of Europe into mission service. There was the opening itself. It was on the Sabbath. This is a Romanian singing quartet. And there's our director, that young lady on the right. She's a dynamo. She's the kind of person who bends reality to her will, you might say. And you need people who kind of like they're kind of like bulldogs. They're going to get things done, and she certainly knows how to get things done. There's the mayor. He came down, and when I heard that the mayor was there, I switched to a much more evangelistic sermon because he's going to sit through that sermon. So I changed my sermon because he was there, and he was delighted that there were Adventists coming into his community, and he gave us a very warm welcome. and we thanked him for the gravel road and reminded him that we still need a tarmac road. So anyway, that's getting done. There's our treasurer from AFM, Cavell Regis. There's from AFM in Canada. There's the ASI Europe director from Switzerland. There's the treasurer of the Inter-European division. And there's the Trans-European division speaking there for us. These are some of the local Romanian church leaders. So that was a bunch of church leaders came for that opening event. So on the way home in the airport, you see how low down they put the security cameras, like you can't miss them. You can go up and you can smile right into them and give them a wave. And it's interesting to go around the world how they deal with COVID. This is an interesting sign. Read what it says in English. It says, "You look great today, and your face mask makes your eyes stand out." So, as you go around the world, different cultures deal with things in very different ways. And a nice thing to do as a missionary is when you go onto a plane, look at the safety video they put on the plane. So if you get on a United flight, it's all very, workmanlike, you might say. And if you get on Air France, they have these very fancy ladies doing the thing, and they say things like, "Put your seatbelt on because it is chic to wear your seatbelt." And you think, that's the reason I wear a seatbelt, because it's the chic thing to do? I don't think so. So anyway, if you go with the Taiwan Airways, they have like the Hello Kitty stuff, which is just nonsense, and the security is done with Hello Kitty. So, it suddenly appeared back here. So as you go around the world, you see that different people do things according to their culture, and it's just interesting to see how cultures approach the same challenges from different perspectives. So did God answer our prayers? Did we get a bank account? Not with the conference, but yes, we got our own bank accounts. Did we register with AFM Europe with the local authorities? Yes. Did we open our own bank accounts? Yes. Did we finalize our website? Yes. Did we find an operations manager? Yes. So all of our prayers were answered. And I want to tell you this, mission is a story of answered prayer. If you're not praying for things, don't expect God to do things for you. And as a church, start praying for what you want God to do for your church. When I was pastoring in Minnesota, I heard of this Adventist pastor in Texas who was the most successful evangelist in Texan history, in the Adventist church. And so I figured, how is this guy so successful? And because I'd seen some of his sermons, and they really, they're average sermons. So I called and I said, how come you get so many baptisms? He says, very simply, he says, in the year 1967, as a church, we're praying for 67 baptisms. And the year 1968, we're praying for 68 baptisms. And the year 1969, we're praying for 69 baptisms. He said, if your church starts praying for baptisms, God will give you one souls. He'll lead your souls into his kingdom. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that in Minnesota. So my first year was not 2099, it was 2007. I thought, that's a good place to start, yes? So every year we were praying in each of our congregations for 7 baptisms, 8 baptisms, 9 baptisms, 10 baptisms, and every year God gave us those baptisms in every congregation. So the story of mission is, if you're not praying for things and on your knees thinking about big dreams and visions for God, don't be surprised when you don't see anything happening. But start praying for things to happen, be faithful in that prayer, and God does answer those prayers. So, what are we praying for now? 10 missionaries, short-term missionaries to launch this year. That will happen. 3 career missionaries to launch by December 25. We've got one family now preparing to go to Greenland and a young lady preparing to go to Japan. We're looking for one more to launch by December 25. And we're putting a new public campus recruitment strategy in place by this summer. So we're working on that, back and forth on email right now. But I'm confident that God will answer these prayers. So I got back from Romania on Monday night, and early the Tuesday morning I went straight back to O'Hare to fly to Japan. And so this is Japanese Airways. They're very nice. This is a 78, a Dreamliner. Those are the nicest planes to fly over the Pacific in. They're better than the 777s. And Japanese airlines, everything is very formal on there. They have this light blue lighting. And if you ever get a chance to fly ANA, it's well worth it. But when you come into Tokyo Hanida's airport, this is the kind of sign that you see. And this is warning me of what I can't bring into the country. So you look at these signs, you think, I'm not quite sure I can read any of this. This is the international arrivals section. And so I suggested at the airport, the airline information desk, I said, if you want people to understand what they can't bring into the country, maybe put your sign up in English, not in Japanese. Because I could figure out from that I'm not supposed to be bringing dogs into the country, but no, I don't have a dog. I'm not supposed to bring in rashers of bacon, but no, I don't have any rashers of bacon with me. But the rest of it's kind of a mystery. But what I was praying about there was I had a suitcase full of 100 God pods, which had been preloaded with the Gogodala, the scripture, New Testament in Gogodala language for Papua New Guinea. And I didn't know whether I had lithium-ion batteries in those things or not. Honestly, I didn't know. And everybody says when you check in, do you have lithium-ion batteries? No. And I thought, well, the suitcase was filled with these 100 God pods. And I know they have some kind of battery, but I don't know what kind of battery. So I put it through the security and said, Lord, if it's lithium-ion battery, please may they stop it. I don't want to bring down a plane with having an explosion, because lithium-ion batteries can explode in planes. And as we were flying over the Pacific, I thought, Lord, I don't want this plane to come down, because AFM was hauling all these lithium-ion batteries. And when I got to Japan, I had to collect my baggage, and I checked it, and it looked suspiciously like lithium-ion batteries to me. So I thought, well, I'll go and check in again to Thailand, and I had a long discussion at the check-in desk, and they couldn't figure out whether it was lithium-ion batteries or not. So by God's grace, those batteries all made it with me down to Thailand, and we flew into Bangkok, and just north of Bangkok, there's the ancient city of Ayutthaya, and there we met with the mission leadership there. And so we got into Thailand on Wednesday night, and Thursday morning we had a long meeting. And you see there some missionaries at the very back. You've got the Griswolds back left, and you've got the Thai mission on the front left in the purple shirt. The President, Secretary and Treasurer were there. Julia O'Carey from ASAP Ministries is front right. Mike Keir is there with his wife, and then Dorothy and Bruce Hayward at the back. And the reason we were there was ASAP have a dream to establish lay training facilities for young people, so young people can have skills they can earn a living from, and therefore they can go and get jobs in cities where there's no Adventist presence. That's the basic idea. And there's basically kind of in-country tent makers. And so we spent the whole day discussing how this was going to take place. This was the house where the Griswolds had lived for many years back in the early 90s. Where there's now an Adventist church there. And the mission has built these accommodation units in anticipation of getting a lot of young people coming through every year, learning skills like auto mechanics, engine repair for motorbikes, and hairdressing. And with those skills, they could then earn a living elsewhere in Thailand. And so this is what a Thai meal looks like. Thai food tastes better in America than in Thailand, I have to say. It's more suited to the American palate. You kind of look at this stuff and you kind of like pick at it, wondering exactly what you're eating. And but most of it's edible. But you have to get used to it, all right? But so as you go around the world, you eat some strange things. And I was just sharing with Arnold, well, he knows this already. There are some parts of the world where the food is so dirty that I always take a litre of Coca-Cola with it, because Coca-Cola will kill any bugs in the food. And so after you've had, like, if you go to India and you get a roadside plate and it's got dal and rice on it and there's dried food on the plate before you eat it, you know that it hasn't been washed properly. So after you've eaten that, you swig down a litre of Coca-Cola and you're fine after that. So it's one of the tricks of the trade, you might say. So after we spent time a day planning that, we went to visit the Thai mission. This is the Thai mission office in downtown Bangkok. There's the Thai Adventist school there. There's the mission, and they've knocked down the old office, and they're building a new steel and glass building there for their new office for the mission there now. And the reason we were there was we've run up in the north of Thailand, where Sister, my colleague here from AFM as well, Sister Paula Haynes, she's with us today. She was in a neighbouring country, but in northern Thailand we established something called Peace Music Academy in 2012. And this was in a city where there was the existing Adventist presence. There was a retired pastor and 3 elderly ladies, and the ladies were the halt, the lame and the blind, quite literally. One was in a wheelchair, one was blind, and the other could barely walk. And this was the Adventist presence in a city of over 500,000 people. And so that's where we established, by God's grace, a beautiful congregation based around a music academy that we set up. And we set up a music academy because we wanted to reach the upper echelons of Thai society. And when you run classical violin classes, things like that with student missionaries, you appeal to the upper echelons of society, the social climbers. They want their kids to be able to play Beethoven and Brahms and Chopin. So out of that has arisen a lovely congregation. There's an international congregation and a Thai congregation. And so this is the hotel we stayed in Thailand, in Bangkok, just before we headed north. It's clearly a Buddhist place, in case you weren't quite sure what religion you were walking into here. There's all the various Buddhist statues and things and offerings. And even though Buddhism is technically a form of atheism, they don't believe in any personal God in Buddhism. In reality, Buddhism involves the manipulation of spirits and the worship of the ancestors. And people have these little spirit houses, and they make an offering because they're essentially getting the spirits off their back, and they're hoping they'll get good luck for their business. So Buddhism, even though it's technically atheism, it is more a form of animism than anything else, as it's practiced in much of Southeast Asia. On the way out, they gave us our breakfast. This was our breakfast. And you have a banana leaf with this kind of white gunge in it. And you're not quite sure, is this glue? What is this stuff? And sometimes they have banana in it. Sometimes they have nuts. Sometimes they have something else. So I'm sitting in the car in my jeans, gingerly kind of pulling this gooey white stuff apart, trying to figure out what is it I'm eating here. And I discovered to my joy that it was nuts in there, and it wasn't something like cockroaches or anything. It was genuinely a nut. So I managed to eat through it. Does it taste of anything? No, not really. It's just like tasteless white stuff. And then you crunch on something in the middle and pray that it never had a mother. But when you come to a lay-by in Thailand is a very modern country. It's the second biggest pickup market in the world outside of Texas. So all of our pickups here in America you see in Thailand. It's a huge pickup market. And so here you see Thai restaurants on the left, and right in front of you see a Subway and a KFC. Okay? They actually have these things over there. And in Thailand, they put pork and seasoning in almost everything. And so on my first trip to Thailand about 15 years ago, in my hotel, I had just white rice, and it was filled with bits of pork. And so I didn't know what to do, so I walked around the downtown shopping centre in Bangkok, wondering, what am I going to eat today? And I turned a corner, and there, oh, praise the Lord, there was a Burger King. I thought, oh, I'll have, what did they have back then? They had these spicy bean burgers and fries. And that was the health message, because there was no pork in it. And I was so happy for Burger King in downtown Bangkok. But anyway, there on the left you have Chris Sorensen. He's been over there more than 20 years ago with a mask on. He had the flu that day. He is fluent in Thai. He's a gifted musician. And part of his work now is writing a hymnal for the Thai mission. And the Thai language is a tonal language. So when we sing a song, like any song that we sing, our voices go up and down, don't they? But when your voices go up and down in Thai, you change the meaning of the words completely. So if you listen to, say, traditional Thai music, you'll have like a drone from the singer, and the melody is often carried by the instruments in the background. And so it's a very, very different style of singing that they have, and it's suited to how the Thai language is. So he is busy writing hymns, praise hymns to Jesus in the Thai language. He composes the music, and those are being used across the country now. That's a legacy thing that every Thai will be blessed with until Jesus comes again. And you think of the songs of Charles Wesley. I mean, Charles Wesley wrote his hymns so that the illiterate Welsh miners, they could carry the gospel with them down in the pits. When you read the songs of Charles Wesley, there's rich theology in them. And they were very deliberately rich in their theology. So as those miners were hacking away down under the pits in Wales, even though they couldn't read or write, they could understand the gospel because it was carried in music. And so that's why music is so important for Christians. It's not just to fill time. You can carry the gospel with music, and it sinks into people's hearts and minds without them even realizing it. The guy on the right, the tall guy, is Mike Keir or Kaya. And then you've got Bruce and Dorothy Hayward, their field supervisors for AFM out there. In the back of the car, we had 2,000 copies of Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing, all translated and published in Thai. And so There's another AFM missionary out there called Brian Wilson, who is fluent in Mien, Lao, Thai, and one other language. And he does constant translations for the mission, for the union, and churning out. At the moment, he's working on Great Controversy in Lao, and he's also doing Patriarchs and Prophets in Thai. And he does complain. He says, when you've done like 4 hours in the morning on Lao, to have to do like 6 hours in the afternoon of say, Thai translation, by the end of that, your brain is just fried. And he has online Bible studies with local people, and some people are speaking in Lao, some people are speaking in Karen, some people are speaking in Thai, and because he speaks all those languages, he's like the nexus for those conversations online. He says by the time you've had a 2-hour Zoom prayer meeting with all those languages involved, like the brain is completely done. So thank God for the people with the gift of languages, thank God for people with the gift of music, thank God for musicians. What I'm trying to say here is all of the gifts that God gives his church can be used in the mission field. Okay, all of the gifts can be used. So we stopped off at the Thai Adventist University there. We were late for breakfast, but we looked around and I looked at these interesting samples. If you look at it carefully, it says sugar cheese. AIU Bakery sugar cheese. I thought that looks really good. It actually advertises, it says sugar cheese on the bread there. And so I never tried any, but I thought that must taste absolutely delicious. And then here you have orange jam sandwiches, and on the right you have the toilets, and I'm not sure who the architect was, but if you look carefully at that picture of those toilets, something's going to strike you, isn't it? Yeah, where is the toilet paper? Ah, yes, yeah. So, they should put above the door something like, "A man's in hope, all he went to hear." But anyway, that's so. Little things when you're overseas, you got to be very careful. Like think very carefully where you're going. Don't make assumptions that things are going to be as they are back here, because things are often very different. Then they sell the food in little plastic bags. And there you have like the stir-fried vegetables. They're actually very nice. There you have the brown rice and the white rice you buy in a little plastic bag, and then you take that back to your room or you eat it where you go. Then we went up to Friday afternoon to Konkan, the large city, and as I said, back in 2012, when the first AFM missionaries arrived there was a retired pastor and 3 elderly ladies who were basically on their last legs. One of them didn't have any legs. And by God's grace, now, 13 years later, we see a thriving 2 congregations, an international congregation and a Thai congregation, and we've built this large building here, which is the Peace Music Academy. And again, the reason we do that is we can reach into the upper echelons of Thai society. So if you're a musician, there's space for you in the mission field. We need people who can teach. And we actually, when we were down with the Thai mission, we were talking about how we can expand Peace Music Academy into other cities where there's no Adventist presence, because it's a proven way of evangelism. That's what the meeting room looks like upstairs. Those are some young SMs, one from Zimbabwe, one's from Myanmar. This girl's from Brazil. So we run a very international team in AFM. This is a Brazilian missionary who just moved to a new city out there called Nong Khai on the Lao border. And this was a meeting of local missionaries on the Sabbath evening. We spent time praying and discussing various things about mission-related issues in Thailand. And you got people there from all around the world living and serving there in Thailand. And then Sunday morning, flew down to Bangkok and flew to Port Moresby. On the way, we flew through Hong Kong, and I thought I'd take a picture of the local snacks on offer in the airport in Hong Kong. You can see that, yes? Yes, yeah, roasted duck heads or geese heads. So that's your snack in the airport. And so I decided against eating that. Even with Coca-Cola, that's not going to go down anywhere. So we flew down from Thailand up to Hong Kong, where they gave a very close inspection of my 100 God pods. And I had to go into a side room and explain what these things were. And they were very doubtful whether they could put them on the plane, but eventually they did. I was praying, Lord, I need to get these God pods out to Papua New Guinea. So they put them on the plane, and we flew out to Papua New Guinea, which is the bottom right there in the map. Papua New Guinea is a fascinating country with hundreds of different people groups. There's more of a map of it. And even though we're familiar with the larger island on the left there, all around you, you've got dozens and dozens and dozens of islands, all of whom have unreached people groups on them. You know, the world is wide open for mission service. And so I flew into Port Moresby, and flew into Port Moresby. Adventist Aviation has a couple of planes there, and because my time was so short, rather than getting on the boats or local planes, we flew in this Adventist Aviation plane, and they get 8 people into it. There's the Sliger family. Maybe some of you know the Sligers from the magazine. They were with Amazing Facts, and then they were pastoring in Michigan. These are their 3 kids. Mission kids are very different. You know, they are much more mature than other kids are. They know about life very quickly. And so these are the kids, and they'll talk with you about all kinds of gruesome stories, just matter-of-factly, in a matter-of-fact way. And so, you know, you take off on this little plane, and so there's everybody, and it's sweltering hot on the ground. I mean, you're just sweating it's awfully hot and humid. And then when you take off, there's no heating in the plane, and so you're flying at about 12,000 feet for about 3 hours over the ocean, and you cool down quite dramatically in those little planes. So here we are taking off from Port Moresby Airport, and it's a 3-hour flight down to where we're going in southwestern Papua New Guinea. And there's the alarm, probably saying there's too much weight on board, and then we take off. So anyway, off we go. And when you're on a small plane like this, the nice thing about small planes is that when they bank really sharply. Like if you're on a 747, you sit over the wings, you have no idea whether you're going up, down, left, or right. But when you're sitting on these little planes, when they go left, the whole thing tips left. And you're very conscious of the fact that you're flipping around on those planes. So anyway, Port Moresby is a series of hills by the coast. It's an extremely violent city. The largest industry in the country is security guards. Everybody's got security guards because theft, hold-ups in the street are very common. And so anyway, we're not going to spend too much time on this video. Let's move on to our next one. So as we fly 3 hours over the ocean, and then you fly over Western Papua, and this is what it looks like. And that down in the middle is not a road, it's a river. There are no roads out there, there's just rivers. And the rivers, they flood every year for a couple of months. So everybody's house is on stilts, you'll see in a minute. And so that down there, right in the middle, just like right in the middle is where our missionaries are based, the Ericsons and the Sligers. And this is the heartland of the Gogodala people. The Gogodala people live in about 40 to 50 large villages, each of 2,000 to 3,000 people. And you see a village on the right there. And the villages are built on the highland because everything floods around you. So, so again, when you're coming into land on these planes, you know you're coming into land because all of a sudden the plane goes down like that. And there you're tipping over quite severely with that. And so there's the river. And there are no official airports as such out there. There's just strips in the grass. And before you land, a couple of guys go up and down with machetes, just cutting the grass for you. They make sure there's no rocks on the ground. And then you come into land. So, actually, more missionaries die of road and plane accidents than any other cause, actually. You know, particularly road accidents in Africa are a major source of death among missionaries. But you kind of get a bit, you trust your future to God's hands, and here we are banking as we're coming into land. And you'll see us, it's a steep angle down, and there's the runway somewhere off to the left there. They've cut it out of the grass. And so we're going to do another steep descent. And there we go round. So there's no security briefing on these things. There's no flotation devices. If you come down, you come down, all right? And so if you see right up, there's the landing strip ahead of us. It's been cut out of the grass. So here we are, we're coming into land, and so when you come into land out there, immediately crowds of people gather around you. In Papua New Guinea, most people don't go to school in these rural areas, and so there's hundreds and hundreds of kids just running around. They run around in packs, their own age range. Clothes are always wet because of the humidity on you, so oftentimes their clothes are a little better than rags. And then you transfer all your gear to a canoe, because that's your vehicle out there. That's an all-terrain canoe that is there. And then you whiz along the river. So here we are on the canoe. And no, it's not playing, so we'll just move on. Wow. It's my computer is frozen on me here. It's a ThinkPad, yes. It's still thinking, yeah? All right, so let me just get that thing back again. So anyway, once we landed, there's a reception committee for you. A lot of local Adventists down there. By God's grace, a number of congregations have been established among the Gogodala. And in the next 6 years, we want to plant 40 more churches. That's the goal we're praying for right now. And so I'd invite you to put that on your prayer list. Pray that God will give us 40 more churches in the next 6 years. So this was a plot of land that local government gave to us. It was covered with elephant grass, which is like 10 or 12 feet high. So over the space of about 2 years, the missionaries cleaned it all out. And the Ericksons, he's an architect, so they built, this is guest accommodation. It looks really nice. It's actually basically a wooden shed on stilts. And this is what it looks like when the ground has been cleared. It looks beautiful. There's the training center that's being built, and we built this out of steel because the termites eat anything that's made out of wood. And that's about the biggest building for many miles around, and that's now the center for training of local church leaders, women's ministry events, men's ministry events, Pathfinder events, evangelistic series, and people come from hours away on the rivers to come for events here. And it's basically a wooden shed. So it's a wooden floor and a steel frame. And so nothing fancy. This is how your shopping comes. The boats come across every couple of weeks, and when the missionaries, because over there, what do people eat? Well, they have small gardens, but people steal from each other all the time, so nobody really invests much in gardens. So people eat a lot of fish, and they eat anything that lives, like bugs, grasshoppers, pigs, snakes, birds, wallabies. They eat anything that moves. And so the missionaries would rather not live on a diet like that. So these ships come in, and all of the 6 months worth of food comes off, 6 months worth of gasoline comes off for your diesel, for your outboard motors. Those are 90,000 litre water tanks on the left, because there's no running water out there, but there's rain every day, so you collect the rainwater off the roof, and then that's how people get their water. So the missionaries supply clean water to a lot of buildings in the area, and that dramatically improves people's health. So there's one of those water tanks. Here you have an army of young people hauling everything up the hill to the housing, and when it's done, everybody enjoys popcorn. Now this guy, I took the picture from this side because his left eye was taken out in a machete fight, so he's just got like this white glaze there, so I thought it'd be better from this angle. So anyway, there's a good community spirit out there. They have people bring food to you, and then you pay a few kina for it. This is an egg. I'm not sure how big this chicken was, but the egg is about the size of a softball. And the kids will tell you about, when you break open those eggs, sometimes they're fertilized and sometimes they're not. And so when you're lying in bed at night, the rats are running over your head, and then there are cobras and pythons and boa constrictors running around the house as well. So we built a study centre for the local church. We brought in books here in an air-conditioned unit. When we're doing training of elders, that's the major task for the missionaries if they're not doing evangelism, is training of elders, because you want to train good church leaders. And because many of them are illiterate, you're starting from ground zero and you're working your way up. So male and female literacy programs, once they can read and write, then they can get access to a Bible rather than just listening to the Gogodala God Pods. So here's a church service that we did on. I did 4 days of speaking, morning, afternoon, and evening. These were baptismal candidates who came forward. These were people who'd just been baptized. And that's Pastor Jason Sliger on the left there. And this is a Sabbath school class in the morning. Everybody sits on the floor except for me. I hate sitting on the floor. And what I discovered is because of these windows, the air comes through the windows quite fast. So I would sit in a chair by one of the windows and I'd get this beautiful breeze blowing over me. And everybody else is sitting underneath the level of the windows. They're sitting in the humid air. And I thought, this is built-in air conditioning, but nobody else seemed interested. So I was interested. So how'd you get around? This is a local vehicle. It's, an 18-foot dinghy with an outboard motor. As you go around, you see houses like this. They've got a small vegetable garden there. People don't have sheep, goats, or cows, even though it's perfect land for it, because if you did have goats, they'd be eaten by your neighbors the next day. So because there is no respect for private property, nobody has any incentive to invest in anything. So that keeps everybody living at a subsistence level. So when a society does not respect, let's say, the Ten Commandments, it degrades in front of your eyes, and people are reduced to almost like animal-like level living conditions. This is a lady who does have a garden, but it had all been stolen, so she was complaining to us, and I thought, what am I going to do about it? I don't know. And this is a local school. This is the first Adventist among the Gogodala. He's about 90 years old. He's blind. And just so you know, when the Japanese came to Papua New Guinea, the torture, the rape was horrendous. And so many Papua New Guineans have this cultural fear of foreigners. And sometimes when they hear there are foreigners in town, the women will disappear into the woods because they're terrified of what's going to happen. So missionaries have to overcome that kind of problem. And because Midori Sliger, she has Japanese heritage, it's really hard for people to accept her because they think, oh, she's Japanese. She's the descendants of those who came and raped and killed us. So here you have a local congregation that's been established. Precious souls in each and every one of them, and the floor is made out of bamboo slats, and they built this church themselves. Here's a little boy going to climb a tree. I'm not going to show you the video now, but he climbs up very efficiently. The staple for food is sago, and so you see this lady here. Look at the muscles on her arms. The women have arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so what happens is the women go off for about 2 hours into the bush, and they find a sago tree, which is an enormous tree, and it can be like 20, 30 feet around it in circumference, and they chop it down with axes, and then they chop it into like slices with their axes, and then they hollow out the middle part of the tree, which is like a soft starch, and then they put it into these mats, these mat bags that they've dug like this, and they tread on it for a few days, and out of the bottom will seep this white, tasteless liquid. And that is called sago, and it's pure starch, it's pure carbohydrate. And then when they have a basket of it like this is what they're eating here. This is the sago starch. Then they'll bring it back and they'll mix that with maybe rotten fish sauce or with bananas, and that's their staple. And this is I'll just pointing at the time here. Okay, so this is what it looks like out there. Then the next week we flew back to Port Moresby. We had meetings with the union secretary here about there are so many baptisms taking place out there. How do we get training for the elders in all the new congregations in the regions that are out there? So the training of leaders is a major challenge for missionaries. Getting baptisms isn't the problem, but having church leaders who know what they're doing is a major challenge. And so this is the union secretary here. We spent an evening talking with him. We're writing a new manual for church leaders in Papua New Guinea, and it's not like the elders manual we have here. The issues they're dealing with are polygamy, child abuse, and domestic violence. Those are the three biggest issues the families are facing, and so there's a lot of material work going on how do we explain this is not biblically okay to do these things. We flew up to Wewak in the north, And this is a place where we built this about 7 years ago. It's a halfway house. And as you see, there's no real electricity yet. We run in cords from our neighbor's house and multiple extension cords. I'm not sure how safe this is, but it's what we run on just yet. And this guy here, this Papua New Guinean guy in the supermarket, there's one supermarket in that town. He was the one who we had a missionary die in 2012 out there. A tree fell on his head, and his name was John Lello, and he was the nurse that pronounced him dead at the scene. And then we had to helicopter the body back, and he was there through the whole process. There's your lunch. There's a snack. It's about a 6-inch grasshopper. So be grateful for potluck today, everybody. Rat glue. If you want to get rid of the rats, you put this across the doorways, and it's extremely, when the rats walk on it, they're immediately stuck to it, they can't move. And then you come and whack them. And so you put this glue on, let's say, some cardboard, and when the rats get stuck, and then you come and hit them. The problem is cats walk on it and they get stuck, and you can't undo them. So if you've got cats or dogs, you got to be careful because they're going to get killed as well as the rats. He got onion cookies, milk candy, and because none of us had our wives with us, they sell fish and chips there, so we went and got some chips because we didn't have a living conscience with us. We met with the mission president at the one restaurant in town and discussing evangelism in the western part of northwest Papua New Guinea. Then you transfer all your gear from a roll-on the left into a pelican case on the right because you're going on the river. And then as you're driving up, I know our time is moving on here, the road disappears. And so I won't show the video because it may crash on me. But anyway, we were praying, and the rains in the night just washed the bridge out. And we were driving at 4 a.m. We screeched to a halt, and the bridge was gone. So we were praying, what are we going to do about this, Lord? And then a Land Cruiser pulled up on the other side, and it was empty. And he said, we'll take you to where you need to go. So we traversed across the broken bridge, and we loaded our stuff, and we came to the river. And this is a dinghy that we run up there. And you've got those 2 wooden seats there. They look really nice, but after 12 hours in those, it's really grim. And as we were going up, this was found in the kitchen where we were going. It's a 6-foot boa. And so our missionary, Karen Lawrence, she came out. She was just doing her morning stuff in the kitchen, and this boa came out at her. So she screamed, and it probably screamed, and they had a standoff. And the boa didn't come away well from that. And but the main concern was that this can't be used for food. So it was beaten to death with pots and pans, and then those were washed off in preparation for our meal. So so you go up the river, and these are videos. I'm not going to show them now because this isn't working for some reason. This guy in the middle, the Guinean guy, he's about 40 years old. 25 years ago, he was an illiterate, 8-year-old, and he had no parents as such. And our missionaries out there, John and Belinda Kent, they took him into their home. They taught him to read and write. Then they paid for him to go to the one Adventist boarding school on the coast. He went to the boarding school on the coast. He came back. He served as a Bible worker for about 6 years among the churches that were being planted there. And then AFM paid for him to go to the seminary in country. He went to the seminary. Now he's come back. And now he's the new district leader overseeing 14 churches that we planted. And part of being a missionary is developing local leaders. And sometimes you've got to start with illiterate orphans. And you groom them up so that they're capable to lead churches in their own right. And we thank the Lord for capable Papua New Guinean brothers and sisters who can pick up the mantle of leadership. So these are the kind of houses you see. It's raining on the river, so you cover yourself with tarps, because even though it's warm, there's a lot of rain coming down. There's an old mission boat from many years ago. It's a pontoon boat. It's really disgusting inside. Arnold has slept in there a few times. The sewage just comes straight out the bottom into the river where everybody gets their drinking water from. These are local villages. The water comes up almost to the floors of these buildings in rainy season. And this is where the crocodiles are. This is the May River, where the missionary's been for about 20 years. And there's probably about 24 congregations there now of various kinds. This is one of those congregations. There's the pastor there, and the building is made out of wood and bamboo with mud floors. This is the government clinic there, which actually always has an Adventist nurse in it. But the Adventist nurses don't last long because they all get depression or other psychiatric disorders. This is looking down the hill from where the missionaries live. There's one church on the right, the thatched roof, that will hold about 100. And you see just the left of it, there's the steel structures for a roof. The church members are building an extension to their church. And I pointed out the obvious, that the extension and the building are they're like 15 degrees out from each other. And one is about 2 feet higher than the other. And I said, like if you're going to be preaching, it's going to be what do these Australians throw? A boomerang. The church is shaped like a boomerang. So when you're preaching from the front, they're not going to see you at the back because it's round like a bend. But apparently, it's going to work. So this is a typical mission house up there where the missionaries live. The building is held together by strict brick screws because the wood is all rotten out. When you walk around at night, the whole building sways. So here we are. We spent 2 days mapping out all the villages in that part of the world. Now, it's tropical disease out there. When a mosquito bites you, you don't think anything of it in America, but over there, when a mosquito bites you, the blood shows up, the flies land on it, and then within a couple of days, you've got a tropical sore that can be like bigger than a silver dollar, and that can turn gangrenous and it'll kill you. So every time you're bitten by a mosquito, which is every day, you have these little like earbuds, and you break it where the little orange line is, and out comes some iodine, and it goes onto the skin. You clean the wound, and then you cover it up. So you walk around permanently covered with plasters. Our missionary lady, she got a big ulcer on her foot. It was a huge thing. It went green and yellow. And so she had to stay in hospital for a week with a leg up on antibiotics because you can die out there very easily. And life is very cheap out there. People die. If you have like 10 children, maybe 3 will reach adulthood. There's a very high death rate. So this is a map of Western Sepik province. Those are some of the churches that have been planted, those black spots there. But there are maybe 300 or 400 communities throughout this area with no Adventist presence. Those are the languages out there. Language groups. I think there are, about 50 different language groups out there. And there's local worship in a church. I'm not going to show these videos because the video's not working. But I spent 5 days there with the church elders talking about how to put sermons together, how does a church board work, how does church discipline work in the scriptures, how do you teach Sabbath school teachers to do their jobs. These are plenty of how-to questions. So part of our job as missionaries is building capacity of local believers so they can lead the work. So then flew back from there to Japan, which requires a very different set of clothes actually. Went into Yokohama, went from one jungle to another jungle. And this is the urban jungle of Yokohama and Tokyo with 30 plus million people. And everything is very clean and orderly. You see these little lines on the road? Like when you buy a ticket, it tells you which line to stand in. Because if you've got millions of people crisscrossing, nothing's going to get done. So everybody has to walk in their little channel. So you realize why harmony is a core Japanese cultural value. If you didn't have harmony and everybody doing their bit at the right time, chaos would ensue. Japan has these tiny little hotel rooms. You couldn't swing a cat in here, not that you'd want to, but they have guilt-free Valentines in Japan. The women give Valentines to their preferred young man, and if the man is interested, he gives her something back about a month later. And they have these little robots that you can buy, and these robots, they've got artificial intelligence, they've got little eyes up here, and Japan has got a plummeting birth rate. People aren't getting married, they're lonely, so they have these little robots that become like their life partners. And you can buy these in the store, they're about $5,000. And I sent a picture to my wife, and she wasn't too impressed with that picture there. But it wasn't adultery, right? It was a robot. And then here you have, they have them in English, this is powered by love. And they become like little children. They get to know your character, they respond to you, they talk to you. There's artificial intelligence, little robots. So this is where parts of Japan is going because they're not marrying, they're not dating, they're not having children. And if you go to Korea, South Korea, the birth rate is so low, they're going to lose half their population in the next 20 years because nobody's having children. So here's a young missionary family that just arrived out there in Japan. Babienko's, this is their house. It used to be where Dwight Nelson lived as a kid growing up. They live in one room because of the heating costs. And I spent a day with the Japanese Union planning where they're going to go. There's a Japanese Union. There's a Japanese Union leadership there. And we were discussing which prefecture they're going to be in, which city they're going to be in, various tax-related issues, employment-related issues, visa-related issues, working holidays, for working holiday visas for short-term missionaries. This is like the internal technicalities of running mission work overseas. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes administrative work that is required to deploy a missionary overseas. So on the way back to the airport, we have this meal. There's a Japanese Union president in a moment of levity and joy, and that's a joke, everybody. But they're generally quite impassive to the Western eyes, but as you get to know them, the Japanese brothers and sisters, they do have a wicked sense of humor. You've just got to learn to appreciate it. And in this dish here, this little bowl on the right, it was like this brown soy liquid. I thought, this looks nice. And he says, before you eat it, just scoop in the bottom. I scooped in the bottom, and up came these mollusks. And I said, oh, this is not clean. He says, no. He says, the soup is okay, just don't eat the mollusks. I said, no. If there are mollusks in this soup, this is not clean food. He said, well, okay, you just leave it if that's what your conscience says. So I left it. And in Papua New Guinea, food is an interesting. The missionaries asked me, do you want enriched rice or regular rice? I said, like what's the difference? Well, there's a lot of weevils and bugs in the rice, and so they freeze it in the freezer before they boil it. That kills the weevils. But when you boil the rice, all the weevils and the bugs float to the surface. So you can either have the enriched rice with all the bugs and weevils in it, or you can have the regular rice. And so I said, just take it as a standing order from me that I just like regular rice, please. I don't want to eat the weevils. The regular rice is the lesser of two evils, you might say. So, home sweet home. So then you get back into personal devotions and exercise routines. That gets hurt on the road. There's always jet lag, and there's writing of sermons on the road. Sermon writing never ends. Various leadership responsibilities for AFM, legal, HR, mission and financial issues around the globe. Praying and fasting for frontline workers, some of whom are facing persecution even as we sit here today. And studying for future sermons and weekly preaching appointments. So that's what life looks like from my perspective. And you never quite know what each week is going to bring. All you know is that, or you're going to trust, is in 2 Corinthians 3 that the Holy Spirit is going to write the next chapter of life and ministry for you. And so what can we all do? We can pray, we can give, or we can go. I want to encourage you to pray about this. You can all pray for missionaries. And if you don't know what missionaries you can pray for, some of the missionaries I mentioned today, start praying for them. And out on the front for you there, we have a magazine. Pick up a magazine, pick up a missionary family, and start praying for that family. And when they mention their prayer requests, that's what you're going to be praying for. Because when we unite in prayer, we see answers to prayer. And those prayers sometimes take 2 to 3 years to come through, but God answers those prayers. So everybody can be a prayer warrior. We can give. You can give to support a missionary. If you have a young person here who wants to go as a student missionary, support them wherever they're going. If you have somebody as a career missionary, support them, because God will bless your church when you do that. And go. Maybe you want to go. So if you're like a young person, okay, like these young people here, you can go. But if you're 60 plus and your kids have left home and your mortgage is paid off, you can also serve. And there are parts of the world today where they value, if you've got hair the color of mine, that's valued, okay? They value the wisdom that this color hair represents, life experience. You've battled cancer and divorce and death and all kinds of other things. You know what life is about. So we need people who are young, and we need people who are more mature in life, okay? And so if God has moved upon your heart and you're saying, I want to do something more for Jesus in these last days of Earth's hours, maybe think about serving with AFM. So that's just kind of what life looks like from my perspective. That was the last 6 weeks of my life. And I thank the Lord for keeping me safe. And thank you for your prayers and your support of AFM missionaries. So thank you very much, everybody.
We started a little late. We're running a little late. Could we take a 8-minute break? I know that sounds weird, 8, but that's what they told me. 8 minutes. Use the restroom if you have to. And then we all love each other. So we're going to have to move to the front rows and move closer together, scoot in, and we'll be able to get everyone into the sanctuary so they can see the next part. So take about an 8-minute break. God bless you, each one.
So we need to get my notes up on the screen then, because that's why I read them. We've got the wrong going here.
Can we move this over and set your screen up so you can read it? If he does that, we're dubbing into the other room.
Yeah.
And it'll only put your screen notes
Okay.
into the other room.
So
If there's no one in there, I'll tell them. You should see when you move the computer around, you're flashing. Something's wrong with it.
there's the connection here.
Will it work right there?
That should. Hello, Brother David. Yeah, it's good to be here. Yes. Yeah. Oh, you are? Where are you going? Going for the evangelistic series? Praise God. I'm booked up this July. Yeah. So. Africa, there's a saying TIA. I mean, this is Africa. That is, life is experienced very differently over there. It's more raw. There's no veneer on top of things. The joys are more joyful. The sorrow is deeper. You see that there. And there's no kind of social safety nets, so people experience the highs and the lows in much more. There's no shock absorbers in life. Yeah. Oh, this should be exciting for people. Crocodiles, boas. Yeah, well, I don't mind it because, when you baptize someone, we had a baptism there, and I was baptizing, and there was a water moccasin coming across the water at us. The guys beside me hacked its death with a machete before it got to the baptism site. So, yes, brother. I'm good, thank you, yeah. Good to see you, yes. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. All right, let me, get the,
After all that mission stuff you just got. We're trying to cut things out. Yeah. For time.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Seth. Welcome.
Your name is, sorry? Seth. Nice to meet you, brother.
Seth.
I heard, yeah, you were, many years ago you were out there. Where was it? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Wow, okay.
We had to come back and get married.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm happy to meet you, brother. Thank you for what you did out there. There's now 40 or 50 Taubid congregations and 16 Allengan congregations. And the Taubid have just taken the gospel and they're spreading among themselves. And the missionaries aren't even there. They're working from Manila, and the local leaders are doing everything. So the church is really mature down there. It's wonderful news. So you were part of that process. I just want to say thank you. Yes. You're the head elder here, aren't you? Yeah. Well, good job here. Yes. Yeah. Thank you then. No. The other room, yes? Yeah, that's the challenge you've got. Yeah. So it's nice when I see the text up there, but I can read it from here if necessary. Yeah, yeah. I get that. Yeah. Okay.
Trying to figure out what this somehow more reason Keystone is not working for the right way.
All right. So you don't want me to do the slideshow? I should just leave the slides like that. No?
You're fine. I have it. I have it.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I'm doing is just Keystone. So
yeah.